Hello.
Hi, Mel.
My name is Melanie Wolf, and I work up in spiritual development, and we have Tim Hall with us this morning. Give a fan club right down here. But I wanted to kind of start off actually by saying that when we approached you and asked if you would be willing to do this, you graciously said yes, but you also asked that it could be in conversation. And as I thought about that, I thought that feels so incredibly congruent and integrous to who you are, that you are known across this campus as one who is often in conversation. So thank you again for being willing to do this and for letting me chat with you.
Thank you very much, and it's an honor to be here. My name's Tim. I'm a follower of Christ. I'm supposed to introduce myself, so here we go. I'm a follower of Christ. I am honored to be a husband, a father, a grandfather. December 4th, that's the due date. Yes. I teach Psych 101 here. Love those Psych 101 kids. And I also coach the women's soccer team I love those girls. So that's a little bit about me.
And how long have you been at Point Loma, and what other roles have you held in your time here?
Oh my, this is my 21st year working at Point Loma. I've coached the men's soccer team here for 16 years. I coached the women and the men for 4 of those 16, and I coached the women. I've also I've worked in student development for a few years, and I've worked in spiritual development, and now I'm a full-time faculty member teaching Psych 101 and coaching women's soccer. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Just by way of getting to know you a little bit, I would love for you to tell us some about your childhood, and maybe really specifically, kind of what your faith orientation might have been like at that point. Was there a spiritual or religious tenor to your time growing up?
Yes, I share this with my classes. I was an adopted kid from birth. And so my parents who adopted me took me home from the hospital, and 4 months later took me off to Africa, Southern Africa. Back in 1962 when I was born, young ladies that became pregnant, it wasn't treated as it is now. So I don't know all the details of what happened there, but I do know that I grew up in Africa and came back to the States when I started high school. So Africa is deeply ingrained in my heart, and I was raised as a Nazarene missionary kid in the 60s, 70s, and then came back to the States. So my faith was shaped by the missionary world. I think one of the biggest shapings of my life at that stage in faith was, and I've shared this before, I was raised in a part of I was in Zimbabwe, Zambia, Malawi, South Africa, South Central Africa. So I was raised in the ills of what happened in those days with apartheid and segregation. A white kid not allowed to go to school with African kids, but yet I was in church and doing the worship world with African kids and people. So I learned early in life that my faith is about Christ, but then it's about people, and I had a set of parents that were very loving and taught me early while I was being raised in a culture that was very had a strong disagreement on this. I was raised in a culture by my parents to love people, and that has stayed with me for today. So that was kind of the start of it for me.
Tell us about a time when one of your earliest recollections of God seeming alive or really real to you.
Yeah, I remember one of the things that bummed me out about going to church in Africa at times was they spoke in the language that I didn't know. And so, but we went. And I remember when I was 7, I was sitting in church. There was the African man pastor was preaching, an amazing guy. To this day, he's been an impact in my life. Didn't even know what he was saying. And I just walked forward that day and accepted Christ as a 7-year-old. Now, I don't know as a 7-year-old what all that means. But yet I remember that being significant in my life as a moment when I said to me, this Jesus guy maybe is something more. And then for me, the next time that I really had that was my freshman year here at Point Loma Nazarene on the way into chapel, if you can believe that. So I was heading on into chapel, and that day in chapel, some things happened for me. So those are the two basic memories for me.
That's awesome. Thanks. As we have conversations around vocation and calling, sometimes for people that feels somewhat instantaneous. Sometimes it's quite gradual. How did you come to a sense of calling and vocation in your own life? What are some of the key experiences? How'd that take place for you?
Yeah, and I go back to my upbringing with my folks. I watched my parents love people, and it was ingrained in me because I hung out with kids that weren't raised that way. And so I saw both sides of the coin. And it was ingrained in me early that people matter. The color doesn't matter, the gender, it's their heart. And the thing that was so important for me is my parents modeled that in a very deep way. And so it was something that was in my face constantly. And as I grew, my job, I've come to the conclusion that my job descriptions can look different. They don't have to have the same, a job description for me is a job description. But the thing that makes the job description important to me is, do people matter within the context of that job description? And so as I've grown over the years doing different jobs and having different job descriptions, if people were at the heart of that job description, so to speak, of what my role was, then I felt like that was okay vocationally for me. I felt like my calling could still be played out because of that. Because for me, I want to see people grow, because I know that's what people have done for me in my life to help me grow. And what I say to the Psych 101ers is, you guys know what it is to manage your lives and make wise choices, right? That's what I try to live my life by, because I think growth and development, the journey is windy, it's hilly, it's not compartmentalized and cut and dry, and I think sometimes our problem can be if we try to neaten it up too much, it gets to be frustrating and exasperating at times, as opposed to letting that trail take you. And so I've seen that happen over the years. But if people weren't at the center of it, for me, personal development for people and my own growth too, then I wasn't very interested in it. So
that makes sense, yeah. Being someone so committed to relationships and people being such a central part of your journey, who have been some of those voices who've been significant in your journey? It's
amazing. Yeah, first of all, it has to be my parents. My dad was my guy. He passed away in 2009. That was a very tough time for me. But my mom and my dad, my mom's 90 now, still drives, does her thing. So I'll let you know when she's on the road. But they were very significant in my life. I've had many faculty members here that were tremendously impactful in my life. But I would say probably the person that has shaped me the most has been my wife. She's seen me at my best and my worst and everything in between. And I'm the out front, more loud one. She's the quiet behind the scenes one, but she's very, very, it's very apropos for me to have somebody like that in my life. And she's amazing. 31 years this last August.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And she still tolerates me. My son said when he was about 16, I'm going to let you know a little family secret, I was messing with her and he was kind of embarrassed by me, and he said to her, did you forget your glasses and were you on crack the day Dad asked you out? So that's kind of my son's perspective of this. So I went married way above my head. She's amazing. My children, my son, the guy I just talked about, my daughter and my daughter-in-law now impact me daily, because they say things to me that I don't really want them to say to me sometimes. And then I'd say the other thing that is huge here is working with you guys. You guys are current. You keep an old man like me thinking, spinning a little bit. And so what you say to me and what the students write to me helps shape me.
What have been some of the maybe more challenging or stretching aspects of your journey?
Yeah. I would say that the toughest thing that I have, and the most joyful thing probably that I've ever done, is be a parent. When I look at my wife, there's a similarity in our ability to think, but when you're raising little ones, and I've learned it the hard way, and I wish I had some do-overs with my children, because I haven't been the father at times as I look back saying I wish I would have done that differently. But that's been one of the toughest things, is that they are from me, but they are not me. And that was a very tough thing for me to learn. My kids came to Loma. They went through here. And I'll just let you, very transparent with you. I felt at first when they were here, that my first responsibility, and I'm embarrassed by this, was to be loyal to Point Loma. Instead of being dad to my two kids who were going through 18, 19-year-old stuff. And my son and I have a great relationship now, so does my daughter and I, and they both shared with me, if you would have just been dad during that time, we'd have come to you. And so I cringe when I think about that. That was a very tough time. There's other incidences in my life, things that happened, loss of my dad, my father-in-law 4 weeks ago. I mean, these things gut you. But I think that one of the toughest things for me was learning through my children that I just didn't do it as well as I probably should have at that point. Now, I'm not going to beat myself up too much, but yet we got to move forward. But yet what a painful lesson that was. And my relationship with them is good today, which I thank God for. And I give them credit for that. They were bigger people than I was at that time. So I'd say, just specifically, without getting into too many things, that was one that was really a gut wrencher for me.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. How do you move through something that feels discouraging or frustrating, or that you would do over? What is that process like for you, Tim, as an individual?
Yeah. My dad always used to tell me, you can only start where you are, learn from where you were, but start where you are. And at those moments, I don't have answers. I don't have, I can go to the theologies that I believe in, the scripture, and I do believe in those. I attempt to live my life through those. But I guess for me, when it gets tough and hard, I just need to show up. I don't know what that looks like all the time, but just showing up without having maybe even an agenda for that day, but just getting there. And then the people you get there with, somehow, some way, they maybe aren't even aware of it, but they help you, through people. And I think that's one of the ways God works without me having knowledge of it, is through people, when you just show up. And so that's one thing I was taught growing up, is that when you've got a responsibility, you've got to be there. Sure, we have our times when we need to get away, but showing up is what was best for me. And then there are times for me personally, I go running or something psycho like that, just to get my brain going. I'll put my hat on, my glasses, and I can cry behind those moments and nobody sees. They think you're sweating or something. So that's kind of how, for me, it works.
Okay. Speaking of crying, which I'm not making light of at all, have there been times of maybe deep pain, or in particular experience where God felt silent or really far away? What's that been like for you? Have you experienced those, and what was that like?
Yeah, I think talking about my kids, the loss of my dad, both my dads, who were the two men in my life, the most important role models in my life, are gone now. And so what they have said just ring very clearly. So those are moments, but I feel like, for me personally, that God is big enough for me to not know if he's there, or in my head feel like he's there. I feel like he's big enough to handle my humanity of, like, this doesn't make sense. He is silent. I can honestly say I don't think I've ever been mad at him. I've been frustrated. And I don't know, back to the showing up thing. I just think just showing up. One thing my parents always taught me when I would go to them with problems was they would always lead me to to God. And I know that we live in a Judeo-Christian, we go to a Christian school, and sometimes when we talk about God and Jesus, it's just the talking head, and it kind of goes in one ear and out the other at times. But I'm old enough, and I've said this to my classes and to my women's soccer team many times, I'm old enough to look back far enough to know that he is faithful, even when I'm not aware of it. And so yes, there's moments that I'm like, who are you? What is this? But yet just showing up, and he's been faithful.
And that showing up for you in terms of kind of sustaining practices or even relationships, what are some of those, in particular, the things maybe that have sustained you or gotten you through those periods of maybe some disorganization or what felt kind of chaotic?
No, that's great. I run to people. When my father-in-law died a few weeks ago, I found my comfort at practice with the girls. As I was very transparent with them what I was going through. Shared with my classes, let them in. And so I found that during those times, people, and sometimes people didn't even know, but just getting around people that are good and that maybe they love you, hopefully, or hopefully they even like you. I don't know. But getting around people that are just good people. They don't even have to know the details. Because I just feel like through community like that, your soul is fed. And so at practice, in my classes, hanging around with my two assistant coaches, Amanda and Austin, they're nutty. And we'd laugh, and we'd do things together that just took it away from the actual point sometimes, and that was very healing for me.
You just mentioned the phrase, feeds my soul. What are some of the other things that feed your soul that feel like self-care for you?
Yeah. Well, the baseball hat and the glasses and my cell phone and worship music and going out and running stairs or hills or whatever, just to get some energy out. I call that my Adderall, So that's just what I call it because it helps me. But that is one area. Also, I'm very safe when I get to spend time with my wife. And I bring that up quite a bit. And I just want you guys to know marriage is very, very cool, and it works when it's done with the right person and God's in it. So I just figured I'd tell you guys that, okay? So there you have it. Yes, a commercial for marriage. But the best walk of the day for me is walking off the practice field, going to my office, getting my backpack, and walking to my car and going home to meet her. That is the best thing. That is the best. And it's really good on Fridays because I don't have to come back to work on Saturday necessarily. But so, yeah, that's the beauty for me.
That's awesome. You once were where these students are in terms of age and stage of life. If you could go back and stand before yourself at 19 or 20, what are a few things you would say to yourself then?
Yeah. First, I think one of the first things I'd say to myself is you don't have all the answers, and I don't have to have them now. Your generation compared to my generation, you have a lot more knowledge at your fingertips than I did. So being impatient with answers is complicated at times. But I would say to myself, allow the journey to play its course. Get yourself around people that care for you, like I've said. Put yourself in healthy environments. I like to read. I like to talk to students. You guys you challenge me in a very good way. And so I would say to myself, just let the thing play itself out, and once again, show up every day. There's days you got to take off, and you do it. But and then I look back on my life, and I haven't done one thing I thought I'd do since I graduated from Point Loma Nazarene. Not one thing. And all of it has been right. And there's no way I could have planned that from the beginning. And we talk about it in class. Have a direction, have a vision, but let the journey take its course and see what happens. And I wouldn't trade or change anything that's happened for that journey. So I would say that to myself is take a breath and keep moving. Now, when you're 18, 19, 20, you can't see all that down there. You just don't always know. So it's, for me, I think that's a built-in way of saying I don't know, but yet the journey will get me there. And it, for me, when we get to certain turns and bends, I just got to show up and be faithful to that. So, yeah, that's what's helped. That's what I'd say.
You've told us you're anticipating your first grandchild in a couple of months. What else are you particularly looking forward to, or what are some of the things kind of stirring in your heart right now?
Well, one other thing I want to say is, and not because it's cliche, but remember, if cliches are true, you use them, right? Is keep Christ close. I don't know what that looks like for you. Sometimes I've been hanging on and just barely hanging on, but I'm at a stage in my life now where I'm starting to think about how I'm going to wind this baby down. You know? You guys are, I'm at an age where, okay, I've got 10, 12, maybe 15 more years to go, and that sounds like a long time, but it's not. So my wife and I are having conversations about what's that going to look like going forward. And having a grandchild coming, can't wait to get my hands on that kid. It's going to be exciting. Poor grandchild. I got a jogging stroller, girls, already. It's ready to go. You guys just need to hush up and listen. That's what you. But we're just at a different stage of thinking, and it's got here so far before I thought it would. That was supposed to be down the road, Mel, when I was going to be told that I'm going to be a granddad, and thinking about retirement and what does that look like, and how do I want to go out of this whole thing with my relationship to my wife and to my children. And so the conversations have changed, and I got to be honest with you, they've startled me because I didn't feel like I was ready for that yet. But here it is. And so we're having those types of, and I got to be honest with you, they are very, very exciting. I feel like when God's involved, then when the chapters close and a new one opens, I'm all in. I'm all in. And I learned that from my dad, because when he retired from full-time work, I was worried about him because he was so involved in his work. I said, what's going to happen to you? And that's what he told me. When the chapter closes, a new one opens, and God is in it. And so for me, we're excited about this next journey. So we'll see where it takes us.
It's quite a journey.
Yes.
Quite a journey coming up. What are 3 of the last things you've done that you really enjoyed, that you loved, that felt like, yeah, this is me, this is good for me?
Wow. Well, family's big for me. I've already said that, so I'll go to my work here. I've loved doing LoveWorks trips with my teams, and we went to Zambia this last summer, and to watch those girls immerse themselves with those kids in Zambia absolutely does stuff to my heart and my mind that I don't even know if I can put words on it. That's a big deal, to watch them grow the way they grow. And they teach me on how they get stuck in with stuff. Teaching the Psych 101 classes, there are many of you here, and it's an honor to teach that class. And the stuff I set up for you, you write things to me that is very confidential and sacred, and I learn how you guys show up every day. And that's very significant. I consider that, those 2 things that I shared, those are a couple of pearls that are very big for me. So I would say those 2 things. And just as I close this thing out, and I said, it's not like tomorrow, but down the road, working with college students at their different levels of whatever it is they're dealing with is really a godsend for me. I consider that to be a gift. So
it feels like the place where you're really you, too, working with students. Yeah.
Yeah, true. Hopefully.
I think so.
Okay.
I would love, I didn't prep you for this at all. Would you be willing to pray over our students, and then I'll close our time after that? But I would love for you to just pray for students where they are this morning and heading into the rest of the year.
Be honored.
Okay.
Very. Father, I thank you for this student body. I thank you for the faculty and staff that work here. But specifically today, I pray over this group of young people. We are gifted to have them here at Point Loma. Each one of them is uniquely gifted and individual before you, but yet they're part of a larger community. And Lord, I pray for that one today that is suffering with whatever that is, and we know that it happens here. I pray for that one that you'll bring them peace and direction. Pray for that one that is thrilled with the way life is going. I pray that they will rejoice in those moments. I pray that you'll be with them in their stress and their anxiety, the duties of responsibility of being students. At the end of it, Lord, I pray for them as they contemplate, serve, mull over, debate, think through who you are. Who's this Jesus guy? And I pray, God, that you'll be very real to them. Pray you'll bless them, keep them healthy, keep them safe. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen. One of my favorite times always is standing in the back of chapel with you and seeing you greet so many faces that come in and people so excited to see you. So I think I just want to say a deep thanks to you for who you are, for your life and ministry here. Thank you for sharing your journey with us this morning as well. Would y'all join me in thanking Tim this morning?
Thank you. And remember the two things, right? 1, 2, 3. Yes. Have a good day.
Yeah, you're dismissed.